upper stairwells are absolutely filthy. Nobody cleans them. That Basil's pretty much invisible. And, you know, I feel for Basil. He's got to take care of 4 buildings. And as I told Maureen, because we're in our stairwell in Devon, which is absolutely filthy, well, then maybe we should hire a cleaning person to come once a week to clean all the stairwells. This is so degrading to our property. The management, does she walk I walk the property 4 or 5 times a day. So I see what's going on in and around the property, inside the buildings. It's really not good. They talked about one of their accomplishments in replacing the bumpers in the parking lot. There is the very first parking spot in gate 3. The resident is C103 in Chase. She's got 2 bumpers in her parking spot. They didn't remove the old one, and the new one is behind it. So I'm curious to know when they're actually going to, she's already called them and complained they don't respond to her. So I don't know why they're not removing the old one and replacing the new one, but this is just another complaint that I'm hearing. These little things mean a lot to certain residents.
No, that up, sorry. They all add up.
They add up. You know, the work that's being done on River Terrace, they're blowing paint, they're sandblasting, whatever they're doing. There's no EPA netting to catch all the debris. All the paint chips have blown onto our property, all over the grass, all over the parking lot. I said, Mr. Robert, who's on the board, he goes to his car every day. You don't see the paint chips all over the property. Now, if that gets into the sewer, that's going to get into the river. That's an environmental hazard. Plus, it's also just another thing to make our property look bad, you know, because our president of the board, he strolls the property. I guess that's not a big concern to him. So it is a hazard, it's an environmental hazard. We have landscaping problems, we have lighting problems, fountains that don't work. We're getting a bad reputation. There's lots of places for sale in our complex. It's not good. So I want to move forward with all that, do my best to correct a lot of these problems, work with my other board members. You know, there's a lot to be done that has not been done. I want to be transparent with our residents, guaranteeing them that I will answer their email, I will answer their phone call, and I'm sure other board members will, and address their concern. Whether it be little or small, little concerns are big to some people. So I hope we can get your support, and it'll be a better year coming.
I want to add to that, Ray, that the elevators, I know that I had a conversation with Nicola about after they came in and replaced the cable, and the elevator wasn't working properly, and it's still not working properly. And whether or not they had inspected it to ensure that the problems, were the problems new problems, were the old problems, were we going to have to pay for that? And she really didn't give us a clear answer.
No, she did.
So remind me when I go and take a look at that. I think I have that on my list to try to review that to see how that's being managed. And as far as the gate is concerned, I just want to make sure everybody is aware that you don't need a 954 number. I did go up and I was added. Now, Castle Management is not responsible for that gate, so I don't know. I believe there's contact information here in the Middle River Club. They are responsible for that. So the folks that are looking to get access to that, I actually asked Craig that question last night, because there are more features that are available on CommuniKey that residents are not aware of. I did have a conversation with Nicola and Nicole about a welcome package. When I first purchased my property, there was a welcome package for moving in, moving out, all of the do's and don'ts. You know, we all have the access to the rules and the bylaws and things like that, but there is a welcome package that tells you things that you may not know about the property. And I suggested that they do that for deaf ears. And I mean, not to continue to belabor things, because I really don't want to go down the path of what was wrong or what is wrong and make it feel like badgering Castle Management. But we all know with history, if you don't what you get from history is knowledge to be able to improve things going forward, right? The things that you don't want to do that are wrong. And every single time I bring up a solid recommendation for an improvement to fix something, it falls on deaf ears and it never gets done. And I just like to see that change. I like to see that change. I even escalated up to Nicola's boss, and Nicola essentially agreed that she's green and she needs to grow in her role. But do we as an association want to have to pay for her learning experience or a manager's learning experience?
And to add again to the elevator issue, because she sent out a message on Town Square that they're putting the flooring in tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
In Devon, I don't know if it needs flooring in other elevators. So, you know, on the day that happened, when the handyman people came and removed the machines,
Mm-hmm.
they tore the floor up and destroyed the threshold, the ground floor. Destroyed it.
Second fixture?
No. And I asked Frank, who was overseeing this? And he said, I was. I said, and you let them do that to the floor? Why wasn't it covered? Why wasn't it on dollies? How did that happen?
Mm-hmm.
The threshold at the bottom on the ground floor was mangled. How many months ago did the laundry machines come out? There's still no threshold. That means that gravel and other debris get in the rails of the elevator doors, which cause it to malfunction.
People need to pay attention to that stuff, right? And that's why I respect your input. You see things, and I've said this to you before, you see things that I don't see. And I hope that if you get elected, that there is somebody with your set of eyes looking at the suppliers and focusing on this.
And that would be me.
You know,
and
let me ask you a question. If I came up to you and I told you my boyfriend fell in a hole on the property and almost killed himself, and it's not healthy to begin with, and those holes need to be filled with, what would your response be?
We'll get that taken care of right away.
Mm-hmm. The response was, that's why we walk on the sidewalks. And at one time we had signs up telling people that there are gophers and or ghosts and the iguanas that dig holes, and every time we go on, they empty out. Well, if you fill the hole properly, right,
There's
ways to address those, right? And the hole that he fell in was, and I was very specific about the hole, it is not either a ghost crab or a rodent. So, I mean, I don't say this to pick on people or hurt people. I just say this for people to recognize the level of management and attention that we have on this property.
The level of it, it's okay to say it. So,
It needs to change.
when I was downstairs talking to Nicole, because they mistakenly changed the lock on my mailbox, which took weeks for them to rectify. Then when it finally did, I alerted her to the mailboxes that don't lock. That's a federal offense if somebody's mail gets stolen. That's on the management. I also brought up the elevator and the threshold and the floor.
They don't care. They have other priorities.
They don't care. Basil was standing right there. Basil was standing right there.
Yeah.
And Basil said to me, we have the threshold. It's been up there for a long time. Nobody's putting it in. Steve was supposed to put it in. Well, he's no longer working for us. He's calling Cleveland. Cleveland is ignoring him, walking down the hall, not interested. So then who is going to fix the threshold on the elevator? Because when it goes awry, and then we have a problem with the elevator, and then we got to call the elevator company out again, who's going to pay for that?
I'm telling you, Ray, excuse me for interrupting you, but if I was staying on the board and you were coming to me with all those issues, and I had something else that was more important being done as to why I couldn't get to those issues, I would make that list transparent so that folks within the association understand where Cleveland and Basel are spending their time. So folks in the association would agree with you that we need to get additional funding to do the elevators, because this laundry list of things that we have is completely unacceptable. Okay, so, but without measuring that, and this is to Jamie's point, without having a way to measure those things and address those things, we can't quantify them and we can't justify them, right? And that's the answer that I continuously get from multiple people in that management office. We have other priorities. You don't know what we do. We're here working on, and what are you working on? What's up to us?
What are you working on? You have a board of 5 members, and a management company that we're paying well over $150,000. What are you doing?
That list that you have, that's very, very long now. From pages or something, but, I'm sure they fall into like bigger categories. Yes, they're all into a lot of individual things, but, like, what I was talking about with transparency was really just like, almost, really something to make it fancy, whatever, but throw it on a spreadsheet. Throw it on a spreadsheet, color coded. Green, red, like where are we with, have we not started it, are we in progress, is it completed? I mean, this is like super simple, you don't need to be like using town square or anything fancy, like you can do this with pen and paper, but you want to access everybody, a Google Sheet, cloud link, and then send out weekly.
And everybody should have access to all that.
I don't think like every week you need to write out a whole email and like, but bullet points. This week, this is what was accomplished. If it wasn't finished, that's okay. I don't think anyone's gonna go crazy if something wasn't finished.
No, but
we want to know what's
if they know what's going on, they don't
We
know
try
what's going
to
on.
schedule something. Unfortunately, the earliest appointment we can get is 3 weeks out. That's fair. That's fair. I think we would all understand that, but 3 weeks later, we know nothing.
Well, I mean,
But CJ, you're talking about transparency.
That's my main thing.
That's what you're talking about, and that's what we don't have.
Yeah.
That's what we don't have.
Yeah, and hopefully that will change, you know, I mean, you have the other side of the argument that they're new, they're coming up to speed and familiar with the property and trying to get organized and trying to get all this stuff in order and, you know, but from my perspective, council management, the size of the company, when they come in, they should be able to hit the ground running. One of the first things that any management company should do is to verify their contact information. And for me to go essentially 6 months without getting critical information, now fortunately I was automatically paying my dues, and not knowing what was going on from a budgetary perspective, that's number one. Make sure you've got your audience identified. So I don't know, hopefully we'll be able to get in there, get elected, and be able to affect change. And if not, there's at least 5 more people that are looking at what's going on and asking me questions and pushing back. So,
I think we have a good chance because I'm getting a lot of positive feedback from
yeah. I do want to open up the floor one last time for the folks that are on the phone to see if anybody has any last-minute concerns that we may not have covered or has any particular questions, that folks have. So we have Tony, with all the loans they want, we are well on our way to bankruptcy. It's a comment, not a question. I can't answer that.
Well, I'm sorry, Mario, I didn't see your text.
I got it right here.
Oh, okay.
Mario says, hello, a few questions. Number one, is you plan to have the board self-managed if Castle is replaced? I think that's something that needs to be, I'm going to answer the question first and then I'll pass it to others, but from my perspective, I think that's something we really need to take a look at. I think we need to take a look at the finances, first of all. It is $200,000 a year. Do we have, can we get something better than Castle Management that will give us a greater value? There's a lot that goes into managing an association. You know, Tony had the whole breadth of understanding. He had the accounting background, he had the bookkeeping background, the management background, all of that for one thing. It was $62,000 a year. I don't think there's any chance in the world that we're going to find somebody that has all of the skills. I do know that they attempted to find some folks. Can you step on that bug for me or take it outside? So I think that there's certainly something we need to take a look at. I think one thing that I would do if I were elected is I would sit down with Nicole and Nicola and Craig Vaughn, and I would give them a summary listing of all of the problems that we've had. And I would, in the corporate world, we call it a performance improvement plan. Put them on a performance improvement plan. If the manager doesn't step up to the plate, then get rid of them. But as far as, yeah.
It's 200,000, but am I wrong in thinking it's actually 350?
No, it's 200,000. It's about 121,000 for her salary. She gets 85,000 salary, 24,000 in benefits, 750 a month, and insurance, and then the management fees are 48,000.
Right.
And then on top of that, you get the mailings and things like that. So it's about 171. I rounded it up to 200,000. That includes the 48,000. She's 121. 48,000 is the fees. associated with that. Yeah. No, no.
I think it's safe to say too that, yes,
Yeah,
us getting on the board, we can push her down to part-time. She's not needed here 5 days a week.
So Mario asked, is your plan to have the board self-managed if Castle is replaced? I've answered the question. Ray, do you want to answer it so I can hear your perspective?
Will Castle be replaced?
What, is your plan to have the board self-managed if Castle is replaced?
in Castle,
Or would you hire another management company? In other words, would you hire another management company or would you look for self-managed?
I think that's something that we as a board, when we're elected, will have to sit down and discuss. I just can't throw that off the top of my head. I can tell you that I would not personally keep Castle management on. I mean, you're not going to get elected and just say goodbye. It's a process.
it's a transition, yeah.
It's a transition, but from the way they manage our property, no, I would not want to work with them. And to answer Mario's other question, Tony has nothing to do with this group of people, this slate of people, Maureen, Jamie, Dennis, David Bowie, and myself, Ray DiTomaso. We will be the board. Tony is not part of the board. Tony doesn't want to be on the board. This has, please, for everyone, this has nothing to do with Tony. So I just want to clarify that.
Dennis, what's your take on the management company? There was something else in another follow-up question to the Castle management that I didn't see in here, but he's asking, what is the cancellation fee to terminate their contract? There is a 30-day notification, and it is an annual renewal contract, so it renews at the end of every April if you don't give a 30-day cancellation. So that is something that would need to be looked at from a contractual perspective as to whether or not we have an opportunity to even change the management company. And again, the management company is going to do what the board directs them to do and what the board forces them to do. If we are forced into a contract for another year, like I said, I would put them on a performance improvement plan, and if they're not performing, then basically get fired.
I don't know, I've not read the contract in depth when it came out after you read all the addendums, which were actually far more important than the actual summary pages. My take on it is that as a board, I would suggest that we would take the most efficient and effective course of action, which could include self-managed. But at this point, we as a group don't know who would be available for that, because we have not asked, nor have we went out and sourced all the other possible management companies. Trust me, there's 88,000 associations in the state of Florida, and so I'm sure that there are many people who manage these properties. Now, from my experience and what I've learned during my courses, those properties that do have managers that live on site, that are qualified, are the ones that seem to have a higher rate of satisfaction than those that hire outside management companies. That does not mean all outside management companies are problematic, or that there aren't some that are better than others. So I would suggest at this point, that's all we can say, because that's all we've had an opportunity and reasonable, no company is going to talk to us. What are we going to call up and say we're running for a board? They're not even give us the time of day until we have some authority. Of course, we would have the real acceptable judgment. But I can tell you that there are performance clauses in that contract. There are ways that you can substantiate non-performance, both on our lack of payment and their lack of performance. Every contract has that. We'd obviously want to try to avoid litigation on that topic. But it is true. It is about to renew. Well, in fact, I would suspect that the 30-day window is already passed. It's already passed.
No, that's correct.
So we will automatically renew at this point.
Yeah. And I can assure you that the board's perspective on that is that they
bumped dodged the bullet. They dodged the bullet.
Yeah, they have no problem with the current management.
I want to just add to the points on that for a quick minute. And this happened at a couple of the River Shores meetings. I believe, Jamie, you were there. I know Maureen was there. I think David Bowie might have been there. I don't know if you were there, Dennis. But we were talking about the budget. I think it was the meeting before the final budget meeting of the year. And we were talking about, looking into a portfolio manager, or could we possibly make, Nicola part-time, and Nicole Dion, who is her manager,